Warning: if you're living in Minnesota right now or planning to move there, what I'm about to tell you could completely change how you think about your safety in the United States. The Trump administration just made an announcement that has immigrant communities in one state breathing a little easier, while everyone else is watching their backs even more carefully. And here's the problem. Most people are getting this story completely wrong on social media, and that confusion could put you in serious danger if you don't understand what's actually happening. Let me be very clear about something. When the government says they're pulling back enforcement in one place, that doesn't mean they're going easy on immigration. It usually means they're redirecting their resources somewhere else. And if you don't know where that somewhere else is, you could walk right into a trap. Here's what just happened. The Department of Homeland Security announced they may scale back the number of ICE agents operating in Minnesota. Now, before you think this is good news for everyone, listen carefully. This decision came after the Minnesota governor made it very clear that his state would not cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. He basically told ICE, "We're not helping you, our local police won't work with you, and you're not welcome here." So the Trump administration looked at that situation and said, "Fine, if you won't help us, we'll take our agents somewhere else where we can actually do our job." Think about what this really means. It's not that ICE is giving up on enforcement. It's that they're choosing their battles. They're moving agents from a state that fights them at every turn to states where local police will actually cooperate and help them find undocumented immigrants. If you live in a state where the governor supports Trump's immigration policies, you need to understand that you might be seeing more ICE agents, not fewer. So what does this actually mean for you? Let me break this down in a way that makes sense for your daily life. If you're in Minnesota right now, you might think you can relax, but that would be a huge mistake. Yes, there might be fewer ICE agents on the streets, but ICE doesn't need boots on the ground to find you. They have your address from your work permit application. They have your employment records. They have your border crossing data. If they want to find you, they will find you. The difference is they might not come looking unless you give them a reason. And what's a reason? Missing a court date, getting arrested for anything, even a small crime, overstaying your visa, applying for a benefit you're not eligible for. Any of these things will put you right back on their radar, Minnesota or not. Now, if you're living anywhere else in the country, especially in states where governors are working with ICE, you need to wake up right now. Those agents that might leave Minnesota, they're coming to your state. They're going to places where the local sheriff will call them when someone gets arrested. They're going to states where the police check immigration status during traffic stops. They're focusing their energy where they can make the most arrests with the least resistance. I've seen this pattern before. When ICE pulls back from one area, they double down somewhere else. And when they double down, they don't just go after people with criminal records. They go after anyone they can find. Your uncle who overstayed his tourist visa 15 years ago and has been working quietly ever since, he's a target. Your friend who's waiting for her asylum hearing, she's a target. That guy at church who crossed the border 20 years ago and has 3 American kids, he's a target. Here's what social media is getting completely wrong about this story. People are posting things like, Minnesota is now a safe haven, or ICE is backing down, or Trump is losing the immigration fight. That is dangerous nonsense. ICE is not backing down. They're redirecting. They're using their resources more efficiently. And if you believe you're safe just because there are fewer agents in one state, you're setting yourself up for a disaster. Let me tell you what's really happening behind the scenes. The Trump administration is playing a long game here. They're making an example out of Minnesota by saying, if you don't cooperate with us, we'll focus on states that will. But they're also sending a message to immigrants. They want you to think you're safe in sanctuary states, so you let your guard down. Then, when you travel to visit family in another state, or when you go for that job interview in a different city, boom, that's when they get you. Because the moment you leave that sanctuary state, you're in their territory. This is exactly what happened during previous administrations when they shifted enforcement priorities. They would pull agents from cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles and send them to places like Arizona and Texas. And what happened? People who thought they were safe because they lived in a progressive city would go visit family in another state and get picked up at the bus station. Or they'd drive to a wedding and get stopped at an internal checkpoint. The agents didn't disappear. They just moved. Now let's talk about what this means for your specific situation, because everyone watching this video is in a different position. If you have a pending case with USCIS, nothing about this announcement changes your situation. Your application is still being processed. Your interview is still happening. Your background check is still running. The officers reviewing your case don't care whether there are more or fewer ICE agents in Minnesota. They care about whether you qualify for the benefit you're asking for. So don't think this news means USCIS is going easier on applications. That's not how it works. If you're undocumented and living in Minnesota, don't celebrate yet. Fewer agents doesn't mean zero enforcement. It doesn't mean you can stop being careful. It doesn't mean you should suddenly start taking risks you wouldn't have taken before. ICE still has full authority to operate in Minnesota. They still have access to all their databases. They still have informants and partnerships with federal agencies that don't care what the governor says. One mistake and you're still getting deported. If you're on a temporary visa, like an H-1B or a student visa, this announcement has nothing to do with you directly, but it should still make you think. The fact that the government is openly redirecting immigration enforcement resources tells you something important. They're serious about ramping up deportations. They're not just talking tough for the cameras. They're actually moving people and money around to make it happen. That means if you violate your visa terms, if you work without authorization, if you overstay even by 1 day, you're giving them exactly what they need to remove you. And if you're a green card holder, don't think you're completely safe either. Yes, you have more protections than someone on a visa. But if you commit certain crimes, if you lie to immigration officers, if you abandon your residency, you can still lose that green card. And in an environment where ICE is actively looking for people to deport, they're not going to overlook green card holders who give them a legal reason to take action. Here's the reality check you need to hear. Immigration enforcement in America is not about fairness. It's not about giving people a chance. It's about numbers and political pressure. The Trump administration promised to deport millions of people. They have to show results. So whether there are more agents in your state or fewer agents, they're still coming for someone. Your job is to make sure that someone is not you. So what do you do right now? How do you protect yourself when the enforcement landscape is changing this fast? First, stop believing everything you see on TikTok or Facebook about immigration. I see people sharing posts that say ICE can't arrest you if you don't open the door. That's true, but it's not the whole story. If they have a warrant signed by a judge, they can break down your door. If they see you through the window, they can wait outside until you leave for work and grab you on the street. Know your rights? Yes, but don't think you're untouchable just because you know some legal tricks. Second, if you have any kind of case pending, any application in the system, any hearing scheduled, do not miss it. I don't care if the hearing is in Minnesota or Texas or California. If you miss that court date, you just gave ICE a deportation order with your name on it. And once they have that order, it doesn't matter how many agents are in your state. They will find you eventually. Third, be very careful about traveling right now, especially if you're undocumented or if you have any kind of complicated immigration status. Those internal checkpoints on highways, they're getting more aggressive. Those immigration questions at domestic airports, they're happening more often. If you're in a place where ICE has pulled back, great. But the moment you cross state lines, you're rolling the dice. Fourth, if you're planning to adjust your status, apply for asylum, or do anything that requires you to interact with USCIS, get a lawyer. Not your cousin who helped his friend one time. Not that guy on YouTube who sells DIY courses. A real immigration attorney who knows the current policies and can keep you out of trouble. Because one mistake on your application right now could trigger an ICE referral, and then it doesn't matter how many agents are in your state. And finally, understand this. The government doesn't announce enforcement pullbacks to be nice. They announce them to send a political message and to shift resources to where they think they'll be more effective. If you're in Minnesota and you think this means you're safe, you're misunderstanding the game. If you're anywhere else and you think this doesn't affect you, you're also wrong. This is a national strategy, and you need to think about your safety nationally, not just locally. Look, I know this is scary. I know it feels like the rules keep changing and you can't keep up, but that's exactly why you're watching this video, because you're smart enough to know that staying informed is the only way to stay safe. I'm Joe from US Visa Path, and I'm here to keep your American dream safe. My job is to cut through the noise and tell you exactly what you need to know to protect yourself and your family. Not what sounds good, not what makes you feel better, but what's actually true and what actually works. If this video helped you understand what's really going on with immigration enforcement, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now, because these updates are happening every single week, and if you're not staying on top of them, you're putting yourself at risk. The people who make it in America, the ones who get their green cards and bring their families over and build the life they dreamed about, they're not lucky. They're informed. They know what's happening before it happens. They don't learn about policy changes from rumors. They get the facts and they act on them. This is not the time to guess. This is not the time to hope everything works out. This is the time to know exactly where you stand and what you need to do next. So subscribe, stay informed, and keep your dream alive.